Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking a truly in-depth exploration into a topic that touches every single one of us, inevitably, I think, at some point in our lives. We're talking about the profound experience of suffering and pain.
Yeah, those really tough times.
Exactly. Those incredibly tough moments, whether it's, the gnawing physical agony of sickness or that isolating emptiness of loneliness.
Or betrayal, that sharp sting.
Oh, absolutely. Betrayal or the profound aching void left by a physical loss. It's just so universal, isn't it?
It is a universal human condition,
Sure.
often unavoidable, and always feels deeply, uniquely personal when you're in it.
So the question is, how do we navigate these valleys? How do we find a foothold when the ground feels like it's crumbling beneath us? Okay, let's unpack this. For this deep dive, we've received some incredibly powerful and, I think, insightful sources. Our primary guide is this document called Comfort in Suffering, God's Assurance in Pain.
Right, and it really meticulously zeroes in on specific biblical verses that address these very questions.
It does. And then providing this sort of beautiful contemporary echo, we have excerpts from Smith Solace.
Which is a channel dedicated to Christian prayer songs. Right?
Exactly. And they're directly inspired by these very scriptures we'll be looking at. It's a fascinating link. So our mission today is, to explore how these two distinct yet somehow profoundly harmonized sources present this idea of finding comfort, finding assurance, even when we're staring down life's absolute toughest challenges. We want to extract powerful nuggets of insight, things that speak directly to those moments of weakness and immense burden.
Like, how do these ancient texts, these deep scriptural insights, and these modern creative expressions connect? How do they provide genuine solace?
Yeah, and what surprising facts can we maybe uncover about the nature of divine comfort when everything around us just feels chaotic?
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the comfort and suffering text immediately establishes a foundational premise.
Mm.
It kind of counters a very common human tendency.
Which is,
Well, it powerfully highlights that the Word of God doesn't shy away from pain.
Mm.
It doesn't ignore it or
Right.
pretend it doesn't exist or, offer simple platitudes.
right, no easy answers.
No. Instead, it speaks directly into suffering with what the source describes as love, truth, and healing. So this isn't about finding a quick escape from pain or some simple avoidance strategy. It's really about experiencing pain with a promised divine presence.
And that presence transforms the experience itself.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It changes the very nature of that experience. For our deep dive today, we're specifically looking at 6 biblical verses. The source identifies them as, and I quote, divine promises that bring light in our darkest valleys.
That's a powerful image. Light in the darkest valleys.
It is. And what's particularly insightful, and where Smith Solace really shines, is how these very same themes manifest in contemporary creative expression.
So it's not just ancient history.
Not at all. It's like witnessing these ancient timeless truths being echoed and reinterpreted in a way that resonates deeply with today's experiences of suffering. It adds another powerful kind of emotional layer to this message of comfort.
Yeah, it really shows how these messages, I guess, transcend time and speak directly to the human heart.
Exactly. Bridging that gap between antiquity and modernity in a very tangible and honestly quite moving way.
Absolutely. So let's begin our journey. Let's start with the first powerful assurance found in Isaiah 41:10. It reads, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand."
Strong words.
Very, and this isn't just, a collection of comforting words. As the Comfort and Suffering document points out, it's described not merely as a verse, but as a divine assurance.
A divine assurance. I like that. It's a profound declaration, really, of divine proximity and unwavering support, especially when fear threatens to overwhelm us.
Yeah.
And that's precisely where the core analysis of this verse truly deepens. The text explains why God tells us not to be afraid.
Okay, why?
It's fundamentally because he is with us. That's the reason given. This isn't a suggestion. It's the very foundation of the promise.
So it's not about us not being afraid, it's about him being present.
Exactly. And it's crucial to understand, the source clarifies, this assurance is not about our strength. It's about his presence.
That's a big shift in perspective.
It really is. Often when we face overwhelming circumstances, our first instinct is to try and muster more strength, right? To dig deeper within ourselves.
Yeah, white knuckle it through.
Right. But this verse pivots that perspective entirely. It says our capacity to endure might waver, and let's be honest, it likely will.
Yeah.
But the promise is about an unchanging, sustaining divine presence that doesn't depend on our fluctuating resolve.
Okay.
And then the verse expands with this powerful three-part promise.
Yeah.
I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you.
Strengthen, help, uphold.
Yes. And this is where it gets really interesting. This isn't a guarantee that the trial itself will immediately vanish.
Right. The problem might still be there.
Precisely. Or that the path forward will suddenly become easy. Instead, it's a promise of sustaining power through the trial.
Staying power. Okay.
It's about being equipped, fortified, and quite literally upheld to navigate the difficulty, rather than the difficulty being instantly removed. And that distinction, I think, is vital for anyone walking through prolonged suffering.
And to truly ground this promise, to make it less abstract, the Comfort in Suffering source brings in a fantastic biblical example.
Well, yeah, which one?
The harrowing story of Moses and the Israelites at the Red Sea from Exodus chapter 14.
Ah, classic.
Yeah.
Caught between a rock and a hard place, literally.
Exactly. Just imagine the scene for a moment. The Israelites, freshly escaped from generations of slavery in Egypt, they're now literally caught in an impossible situation.
The Red Sea in front.
This vast, impassable sea right in front of them, and Pharaoh's entire relentless army bearing down on them from behind.
Total panic, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. Their fear, their terror must have been absolutely palpable, like a suffocating, overwhelming panic. All human escape routes were cut off. But in that moment, when everything seemed lost, God speaks through Moses. And he echoes the very sentiment of Isaiah 41:10.
What does he say?
Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today.
The source explicitly draws that direct parallel to I am with you from Isaiah.
Wow. Okay.
And what happened? The sea, against all natural laws, parted. Their paralyzing fear was transformed into this astonishing, undeniable miracle of deliverance.
It's such a vivid historical illustration of that promise in action. It demonstrates divine presence not just in abstract terms, but in, well, miraculous, tangible intervention.
Exactly. It's not just words on a page.
No, and that example perfectly sets up the real-life application for us today. Because, let's face it, human fear and helplessness haven't really changed much over the millennia.
The source notes that when we go through sickness or betrayal, our strength might fail, but God says, I will uphold you.
So it brings this ancient promise right down to our ground level.
Absolutely. It gives concrete examples that resonate deeply today, whether it is chemotherapy or a broken marriage.
Wow, okay, so very real, modern struggles.
Yes. This really highlights that the assurance of Isaiah 41:9 isn't confined to these grand ancient narratives. It applies just as powerfully to both physical and emotional suffering in our contemporary lives.
And the promise isn't necessarily escape.
Not necessarily an immediate escape, as the source reiterates, but rather a sustaining strength to endure it day by day, moment by moment.
Sustaining strength, that feels achievable, or at least graspable.
It does. And what's also profoundly compelling is how this verse, this core message of divine presence and sustaining strength, resonates and is reflected in the Smith Solace material we mentioned.
Ah, the prayer songs.
Exactly. That channel explicitly states its purpose is to provide healing, peace, hope, or encouragement in seasons of sickness, loneliness, betrayal.
So the same themes.
Directly echoing Isaiah 41:10. Their music often weaves in themes of God's unchanging presence through hardship. It really demonstrates the enduring relevance of this promise.
Yeah, how its message continues to be a source of profound comfort across centuries, cultures, and even, creative mediums like soul-stirring music.
It's the very bedrock, you could say, upon which so much solace is built.
Okay, so from that promise of strength in the face of fear and uncertainty, let's transition. Let's move to an incredibly tender and I think universally appealing invitation found in Matthew 11:28. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest."
Such simple words, but so profound.
Right. And the Comfort in Suffering source describes this not as a command, interestingly, but as nothing less than an invitation, an open call from Jesus himself.
An open call. I like that. It's a direct address, isn't it? Extended with profound compassion to anyone feeling the weight of the world.
Anyone weary and burdened.
And what's truly crucial about this invitation is its profound recognition of the breadth and depth of human suffering.
He gets it.
He gets it. The source emphasizes that he recognizes our weariness, our burdens, our emotional fatigue.
Right.
This isn't just a superficial acknowledgement. It's a deep, empathetic understanding of the full spectrum of human struggle.
From physical exhaustion to
Right. Mental,
weariness.
exactly, exhaustion, deep-seated emotional fatigue, spiritual drain, mental weariness, all of it. Think of the hidden burdens we carry.
Unexpressed grief, chronic stress.
Yeah, or the weight of unfulfilled expectations, maybe guilt. And then the command, if you can call it that, is remarkably simple and profoundly radical.
Which is,
Just come.
just come. That's it.
That's it. This implies an absolute lack of preconditions for receiving this rest. You don't need to clean yourself up first or fix your problems or somehow earn it.
No qualifications needed.
None. The invitation is for you precisely as you are, with all your weariness and burdens laid bare. It's a complete acceptance of our current state, however messy or broken it might feel.
That really shatters that human tendency, doesn't it? Believing we must be good enough before we approach for help.
Completely. It turns it on its head.
So, to illustrate the power and generosity of this open invitation, the Comfort in Suffering source brings forward another story.
Okay.
The poignant story of the woman with the issue of blood, found in Matthew chapter 9.
Ah, yes. 12 years of suffering.
12 grueling years. Think about that. A debilitating, chronic condition. Imagine the sheer physical drain.
And the financial ruin, right? Spent everything on doctors.
Exactly. Spent all her money on doctors who couldn't help. And perhaps most painfully, the profound societal ostracization she would have faced because of her illness in that culture.
She would have been considered unclean, isolated.
Absolutely. She was, without question, utterly weary and burdened, both physically and emotionally. But despite all that, she possessed this unshakable, almost desperate belief
What was it?
that one touch of Jesus would heal her. Just the fringe of his garment, she thought.
So she acted on that belief.
She did. She pressed through the bustling crowd. She reached out. She came to him in her brokenness and her faith.
And his response.
Immediate and compassionate. He didn't question her past or her worthiness. He felt the power go out, turned, saw her, and simply said, "Take heart, daughter. Your faith has healed you."
Wow. Take heart, daughter. So personal.
So personal. And the connection here is so starkly clear, as the source points out. She came, weary and burdened, and he gave her rest, not just profound physical healing, but a restoration of her dignity, her life, a lifting of that immense, crushing burden she had carried for so long.
It transformed her entire existence.
Completely.
And this is where the practical application of Matthew 11.28 truly resonates, I think. It hits home for us today.
How so?
The source invites us to consider our own contemporary burdens. Maybe your burden is chronic anxiety, it suggests, that never seems to quiet.
Or the sharp sting of rejection from a loved one.
Exactly. Or even the pervasive weight of unspoken guilt. These are deeply personal, often invisible burdens that so many of us carry daily, sometimes silently.
Yeah.
And the crucial insight, as the source so powerfully points out, is that Jesus doesn't say, "Fix yourself first, then come to me." He says, "Come as you are."
Come as you are. That's revolutionary, really.
It is. It's a radical departure from how many of us instinctively approach our struggles. We're often conditioned to believe we need to be strong, right? To present a perfect facade or to somehow earn help before we ask for it.
Hide the mess.
Right. But this invitation dismantles all those self-imposed barriers.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to explicitly not carry our burdens alone.
So you don't have to do it by yourself.
The promise is that Jesus is willing to lift it with you. That's the key phrase.
Yeah.
He's willing to lift it with you.
Okay, so it highlights the shared nature of the burden.
Exactly. You aren't simply handing it over to be miraculously vaporized, maybe, but rather you're inviting a divine presence to share the weight, to walk alongside you in carrying it, and ultimately to provide a deep and abiding relief and rest that no amount of human effort could achieve on its own.
It truly transforms the act of seeking help then, from maybe a moment of perceived weakness into an act of profound trust.
And liberating vulnerability, I'd say.
Yeah. Liberating vulnerability. That concept of a shared burden, of inviting a divine presence into our struggle, leads us beautifully into our third verse.
Okay.
Psalm 34.18. This one so directly addresses profound emotional hurt. It says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit."
Powerful, brokenhearted, and crushed in spirit.
Yeah. And the Comfort in Suffering document specifically notes that this verse speaks directly into emotional pain, betrayal, heartbreak, abandonment.
So this isn't primarily about physical ailments.
No, this is about those deep, searing wounds of the soul, the ones that often feel invisible to others but are so acutely felt within us.
And the significance of this psalm lies in its core, kind of counterintuitive assurance, doesn't it?
How so?
God is near, not distant.
Mm.
Even when every fiber of our being, every emotional impulse screams the absolute opposite.
Right, because when you're hurting that badly, you often feel incredibly isolated.
Exactly. When we're in the throes of emotional pain, when we feel utterly devastated by betrayal or loss, it's a natural and very human response to feel profoundly isolated, maybe even abandoned by God, to feel as though he couldn't possibly be present in such a dark, chaotic, personal space.
But this song directly counters that feeling.
It does. And that phrase, crushed in spirit, is particularly potent, don't you think? It's deeply descriptive.
Yeah, what does it really mean, crushed in spirit?
Well, it speaks to that intense internal pain that goes far beyond mere sadness. It's the feeling of one's very essence, one's innermost being overwhelmed, shattered, or utterly demoralized by circumstances.
Like profound betrayal or loss or grief.
Exactly. It's not just a surface wound, it's a wound to the core of who you are. Yet the divine promise here is of radical proximity, not distance, in precisely those moments.
And the source, comfort and suffering, uses King David, the writer of this very psalm, as a perfect living example of this truth.
Ah, David. He certainly knew suffering.
He knew betrayal intimately, perhaps more than most. He experienced it from King Saul, his predecessor, who relentlessly hunted him for years, driven by envy.
Right, chased him all over the wilderness.
And then, perhaps even more agonizingly, he was betrayed by his own beloved son, Absalom,
Oh, that's brutal. His own son.
who conspired against him, tried to usurp his throne, forcing David to flee his own kingdom in shame. David certainly knew the depths of heartbreak and abandonment.
No question.
Yet the source points out this beautiful and transformative paradox.
What's the paradox?
Yet in that pain, he discovered a closeness with God that no palace, no army, no earthly comfort could ever give him.
Wow. So the pain itself became a doorway to deeper intimacy.
That's the suggestion. Not that pain is desirable, of course, but that suffering, particularly profound emotional suffering, can, in fact, become an unexpected conduit to a deeper, more profound spiritual connection.
A raw, honest intimacy with the divine that superficial comfort or material wealth could never provide.
Exactly. It's a transformative perspective that finds meaning even in the deepest despair.
It truly is. And this insight, this radical shift in perspective, is incredibly powerful for you, the listener, who might be navigating similar internal storms right now.
Yeah, how does it apply to us?
Well, the source directly addresses those common moments when friends abandon you or family hurts you or life feels fundamentally unfair. It feels like God is far.
That's a very common human response to emotional trauma, feeling deserted.
Absolutely. But Psalm 34.18 provides a truly counterintuitive, almost revolutionary message.
Which is?
But according to Psalm 34.18, it's the opposite. He is closer than ever.
Closer than ever. That is a radical shift in perspective, moving from a feeling of desertion to a revelation of intimate presence.
It is. And the most powerful image the source uses, I think, is that he doesn't avoid broken hearts. He dwells there.
He dwells there, not just visits, but dwells.
Exactly. That particular phrasing can be an incredibly profound source of comfort for someone feeling utterly alone and shattered. It suggests a divine embrace within the very epicenter of their pain, not from some safe distance.
Yeah.
And this theme is so resonant that the Smith Solace material explicitly echoes it.
The prayer songs again.
Yes, the channel is dedicated to soul-stirring Christian prayer songs in seasons of betrayal, which directly aligns with the emotional pain described in Psalm 34.18.
Okay.
Furthermore, Smith Solace even frequently references or alludes to other passages like Psalm 147.3.
Which just says,
He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. It just further underscores this consistent, enduring theme of divine proximity and active healing for those suffering emotional distress.
So it's a through line, isn't it? From ancient scripture to modern expression, offering timeless, compassionate comfort. Okay. From the assurance of closeness in emotional pain, we now turn to a potentially challenging yet incredibly profound concept. It's found in 2 Corinthians 12.9.
Ah, Paul's thorn in the flesh.
Exactly. This verse comes from the Apostle Paul, who famously describes this mysterious thorn in the flesh, something deeply burdensome and painful that he begged God 3 times to remove.
But it wasn't removed.
No, it remained. The verse records God's response to Paul, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness."
My grace is sufficient.
And then Paul adds, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." It's like a divine no that isn't a rejection, but an invitation to a deeper, almost paradoxical understanding of strength.
Yeah, that concept of my grace is sufficient is absolutely central to understanding how God sometimes operates within the context of human suffering.
How so?
Well, the comfort and suffering source clarifies that God's no to Paul's desperate plea was not out of neglect.
That's important because it can feel like neglect, can't it, when prayers aren't answered the way we want?
It absolutely can. It can easily feel like abandonment or a lack of divine care. But here, the message is that God's grace, his unmerited favor, his divine enabling power is unequivocally enough.
Sufficient.
It is sufficient.
Yeah.
Even when the physical or emotional burdens persist, even when the desired outcome of complete removal doesn't materialize.
Okay. And then there's that paradoxical bit.
All right, that striking statement.
Mhm.
My power is made perfect in weakness. This isn't just a clever turn of phrase. It suggests a profound spiritual principle.
Which is?
It means that weakness isn't a barrier to God's work, but rather it can become a direct conduit for divine strength.
A conduit. How?
It's in our most vulnerable moments, when our own capacities are utterly exhausted, when we're at the end of ourselves, that God's power can be most fully manifested and clearly seen. Because there's no confusion about whose strength is truly at play. It's clearly not ours. It's a challenging idea, but ultimately liberating, inviting us to find strength not despite our weakness, but through it.
Okay. And to profoundly illustrate this paradox, the source points to the incredible biblical example of Paul's ministry itself.
Despite the thorn.
Exactly. Despite his mysterious thorn, which, as you know, scholars have debated for centuries, was it a physical ailment, severe persecution, even a spiritual struggle? We don't know for sure.
Right, it's debated. But whatever it was persistent.
Persistent and painful. Yet Paul went on to accomplish an astounding amount in his life. He wasn't sidelined by his weakness.
Not at all. He preached fearlessly across vast continents.
Established numerous churches in diverse cultures, penned a significant portion of the New Testament that continues to shape faith today.
And endured unimaginable suffering, imprisonments, shipwrecks, persecution, stoning.
Right. He didn't stop because of his weakness. In fact, the source powerfully concludes that God used his weakness to show his strength.
That's a compelling testament, isn't it? To the idea that our human limitations don't hinder God's ultimate purpose.
But can actually become the very stage upon which his power, his grace, is most clearly and unmistakably displayed.
Yeah, it completely turns our common understanding of strength on its head.
It really does.
Which then brings us to a very practical and often sensitive application for those who are seeking healing or relief from persistent pain.
People who have prayed, like Paul, and the thorn remains.
Exactly. The source offers a crucial, deeply empathetic understanding here. It says, sometimes God heals immediately. Sometimes he gives grace to endure.
Yeah.
Both are miracles.
Both are miracles. That's a vital distinction.
It is, as it validates both experiences without diminishing either. For anyone listening who has been praying for healing, whether it's from a physical illness, a chronic condition, or a deep emotional wound, and that healing hasn't come yet,
Yeah.
the source offers a profound, comforting reminder. Remember, his grace is active even now.
So the grace is still there, even if the healing isn't the kind you hoped for.
Precisely. This insight reframes the experience of unhealed suffering. It's not presented as a sign of a lack of divine intervention or maybe a failure of faith, but as a different yet equally miraculous form of God's work.
An ongoing, sustaining power.
Yes, an ongoing, sustaining power that enabled perseverance, resilience, and sometimes even joy within the struggle.
That naturally raises an important question, though, doesn't it? One that many people grapple with.
Which is?
How does one reconcile that very natural human desire for immediate relief, for the eradication of pain, with this concept of enduring grace?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? It challenges our often narrow expectations of what a divine miracle can look like.
Yeah, expanding it beyond just instantaneous removal.
To include the profound inner strength to continue and even perhaps thrive through suffering, it forces us to redefine what it truly means to be healed.
Redefining healing. That's deep. Building on that profound theme of inner strength and divine enabling, let's explore Jesus' unique promise of peace in John 14:27.
Ah, peace. Something we all crave.
Absolutely. This is a profound and comforting declaration. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid.
I do not give to you as the world gives. That's key.
It is. The comfort and suffering source really emphasizes that crucial distinction right at the outset. His peace is unlike the world's peace. It's a different category altogether, a fundamentally different kind of calm.
And that distinction is absolutely paramount for understanding this verse. Worldly peace, as the source incisively explains, is inherently temporary based on circumstances.
Right, like we feel peaceful when everything is going well.
Exactly. Finances stable, relationships harmonious, health good. But as soon as circumstances shift, as soon as a challenge arises or a new fear surfaces,
Oh, gone.
that fragile worldly peace often evaporates. Divine peace, however, as Jesus promises, remains even in storms.
Even in storms, okay.
This implies a profound internal state, a deep sense of tranquility and steadfastness that is independent of external conditions.
So it's not about the absence of trouble.
No, it's a profound anchoring presence within the trouble. It's an inner calm that defies logical explanation when chaos surrounds you.
Which is a truly transformative and deeply comforting idea.
Absolutely.
And to powerfully illustrate this profound truth, the source references that iconic biblical example of Jesus calming the storm
Right.
from Mark chapter 4.
Right, where the disciples panic and he's asleep.
Exactly. We all know the story. A furious squall descends. The boat is being swamped by waves. The disciples are absolutely terrified, certain they're going to drown.
Well, Jesus is just napping.
Napping in the stern. When they wake him in desperation, he simply stands up and, with a single authoritative word, calms the furious wind and waves. It's an incredible external display of power.
No doubt.
But the deeper insight offered by the comfort and suffering source here is this. But long before calming the wind, he had peace within. That same peace he gives to us.
Ah, that's vital. The peace was in him before it was on the storm.
Precisely. It points to the true source of this peace not being the mere cessation of the external storm, but an inherent, unshakable internal calm that Jesus possessed, enabling him to sleep through the tempest.
And the profound promise is that this same internal peace, this deep tranquility that transcends circumstance, is available to us.
That's the promise. To you, to us, even when our own lives are raging with metaphorical storms of crisis or uncertainty, it's a gift that operates independently of our external reality.
And this is where the connection to our own turbulent times becomes incredibly relevant and personal.
How does it apply day to day?
Well, the source applies this promise directly to deeply relatable scenarios many of us face. Even if the medical diagnosis is devastatingly bad, it says.
Or even if the betrayal from someone you trusted feels utterly unbearable.
Exactly. In these moments where external circumstances are objectively dire, the profound promise is that Jesus can give you an inner calm that defies logic.
Defies logic. That's strong.
It is. And this isn't about wishful thinking or suppressing emotions or pretending things aren't as difficult as they are.
Right. The source clarifies what this piece is not.
Yes, it's not denial. It's not ignoring the stark reality of the pain, nor is it a passive resignation.
So what is it?
What it is, it's divine peace, an active supernatural calm that enables you to navigate the storm with an anchored spirit.
It offers a powerful counter-narrative to despair, then.
Absolutely. Suggesting that even when the worst is happening around us and our emotions are understandably in turmoil, there can be a bedrock of calm within us, a gift from beyond our circumstances.
And it's worth noting, you mentioned how profoundly this resonates in contemporary expression, too.
Yes. John 14.27 is explicitly mentioned in the Smith Solace sources as direct inspiration for their prayer songs.
So again, that link between ancient text and modern solace.
It highlights its enduring power to bring calm, reassurance, and solace to people navigating suffering in the modern world. It's a testament to the timeless and transformative nature of this specific divine promise.
That profound inner peace, that sense of an unshakable anchor. It leads us to our final verse for this deep dive. Psalm 73.26.
Ah, Psalm 73. A journey in itself.
It really is. And this verse is marked by its deeply honest, incredibly resonant nature. It reads, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever."
Wow. The honesty is striking.
Right. The comfort and suffering source specifically highlights its raw honesty in admitting profound, undeniable weakness, both physical and emotional. Yet it concludes with this unwavering, almost defiant declaration of faith.
It's a journey from lament to trust, packed into one verse.
Exactly.
This verse is, well, a masterclass in acknowledging the stark realities of human existence while simultaneously declaring an ultimate, unwavering truth.
Let's break that down. My flesh and my heart may fail.
That's the stark, honest acknowledgement of the limits of our finite human existence. It speaks to the inevitability of physical decline, the breaking down of the body.
And the heart failing, too,
Yeah.
emotionally.
Yes, and the potential for emotional and mental exhaustion. The heart, our emotional core, can be broken, overwhelmed, or simply give out under immense pressure. This is the human condition laid bare, really.
No sugarcoating.
None. But then, it immediately pivots to the triumphant counter-declaration. But God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever.
Okay, strength of my heart seems clear, but what about my portion forever? What does that mean?
Ah, that's crucial.
Yeah.
This identifies the ultimate, unfailing, and inexhaustible source of sustenance. It's saying that even when every human support system, every bodily function, every emotional resilience falters and falls away, God remains.
As the unshakable foundation.
The unshakable foundation, the inexhaustible wellspring of strength. And here's where the term portion takes on immense significance.
Tell us more.
In ancient contexts, particularly in Israelite society, your portion was your inheritance, your allotted share of the land. It was your sustenance, your very means of survival and flourishing.
So it was everything you needed to live.
Pretty much. So when the psalmist declares God is his portion forever, it means that even when all else is stripped away, health, relationships, wealth, maybe even life itself, the declaration that God is your portion means he's your ultimate inheritance.
Your complete provision.
Your complete provision, your all-consuming satisfaction, your everything. He is enough, even when literally nothing else is.
He is enough. Wow. And to really understand the profound spiritual journey this verse represents, the source insightfully brings in the powerful example of Asaph, the writer of this psalm.
Right, because Psalm 73 starts in a very different place, doesn't it?
It does. Asaph's confession isn't just about his physical or emotional weakness. It stems from a profound spiritual struggle, an existential crisis of faith.
He was struggling with why the wicked seemed to prosper.
Exactly. He admits to being deeply jealous of the wicked, seeing their apparent prosperity, their seemingly easy lives, while the righteous suffer and struggle. He openly questioned divine justice and wrestled deeply with why good people faced hardship while the ungodly thrived.
Which is a very common, deeply human struggle, trying to reconcile faith with lived reality.
Absolutely. But then, a crucial turning point occurs in the psalm. It's described as, he entered the sanctuary of God, and his perspective changed.
The sanctuary, what does that signify?
Well, the source suggests it can be understood metaphorically as a moment of intentional, deep engagement with God, a turning point in his spiritual focus. It was in that sacred space, in that intentional turning towards the divine, that he gained a radical clarity.
And what did you realize?
The source concludes that he saw that God alone was enough.
Ah, back to God is my portion.
Exactly. This wasn't about his external circumstances magically changing, but about his fundamental perception of sufficiency changing. He shifted from relying on external factors to realizing that God alone was his complete and ultimate provision, his full satisfaction.
That's a huge internal shift.
Massive.
And this is where the profound truth of Psalm 73.26 comes directly into your reality, listener.
How does it apply to us right now?
Well, the source doesn't sugarcoat the human experience. It acknowledges these things are undeniable realities of life. Your body may weaken. Your heart may be broken repeatedly.
Yeah, life happens.
Life happens. But then comes the powerful, hope-filled counterpoint that offers deep spiritual resilience. But your spirit can still stand strong because God is your portion. He is enough.
So even when physical and emotional capacities are depleted,
Your spirit can remain anchored. This provides an incredibly powerful message of spiritual resilience, emphasizing that even when our worldly resources are exhausted, there's an enduring spiritual strength available from an unfailing source.
and that concept of God as portion.
It signifies an ultimate satisfaction and sufficiency that transcends all earthly lack. It's saying that God is not just a provider, but the provision itself.
The provision itself. Okay.
He is the ultimate inheritance that can never be lost, the fountain of living waters when all other wells run dry, when everything else is stripped away, when you are left with absolutely nothing else. Declaring God as your portion means He is your complete sufficiency, your all-consuming satisfaction.
It's a radical redefinition of what it means to be truly sustained, isn't it? To have true wealth, to find deep contentment, even in desolation.
Exactly. This is where it truly gets interesting, I think, moving beyond just a basic understanding to a profound spiritual reality that can anchor a life.
Wow. What a journey through these 6 incredibly powerful verses and the profound truths they encapsulate. So, recapping this entire deep dive, the core message from both our sources, Comfort and Suffering and Smith's Solace, it seems unmistakably clear, doesn't it? And consistently woven throughout.
It really does seem consistent.
Suffering is real. It's an undeniable, often agonizing part of the human experience. No getting around that.
No, but just as real and just as undeniable is God's unwavering, promised presence and active provision within that suffering.
Right. The promise isn't a miraculous life without pain, as much as we might wish for that sometimes.
We all wish for that.
Instead, it's a profound, anchoring assurance of a life with Him in the pain and through the pain, transforming it.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound beauty is in how these individual verses knit together. They form this holistic, compassionate understanding of divine comfort that speaks to really every facet of our brokenness.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground.
It does. The Comfort and Suffering source masterfully summarizes these key assurances. It's like a powerful compass for our moments of distress.
Can you recap those assurances?
Sure. When you feel abandoned and fear overwhelms you, he says, I am with you. That's the steadfast promise of Isaiah 41:10.
Okay.
When you're weary, burdened, and utterly exhausted, he says, come to me. That's the open, radical invocation of Matthew 11:28.
Come as you are.
Exactly. When your heart breaks into a million pieces and your spirit feels crushed, he draws near, embracing you, as we saw in Psalm 34:18.
He dwells there.
Yes. When you are weak and your own strength fails, his grace takes over that paradoxical strength of 2 Corinthians 12:9.
Sufficient grace.
When the world offers only fear, anxiety, and external chaos, he offers a unique internal peace, that profound calm from John 14:27.
Peace the world can't give.
Right. And finally, when everything else fails, when all earthly things are stripped away, he remains your unfailing portion, the ultimate sufficiency and satisfaction of Psalm 73:26.
God is enough.
God is enough. And what's also profoundly fascinating is how comfort in suffering moves beyond just receiving comfort. It suggests a transformative response to pain.
A way to engage with suffering.
Yes, a way that brings meaning and even purpose. It encourages us to turn our pain into prayer, our weakness into worship, and our wounds into testimonies.
Pain into prayer, weakness into worship, wounds into testimonies. That's powerful.
It is, and this isn't just theory. This aligns perfectly and is practically exemplified by the Smith's Solace material,
Your prayer songs.
which do exactly that. They create prayer songs directly from these very themes and verses. These are not just songs about comfort. They are acts of turning pain into prayer. They set weakness to music that becomes worship. They transform personal wounds into expressions that can testify to God's enduring presence and comfort for others.
So the songs themselves become testimonies.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
The consistency of this message, its foundational themes across ancient scripture and modern creative works like these prayer songs, powerfully underscores its enduring relevance.
And its profound capacity to bring deep comfort and unwavering assurance to believers across diverse cultures, languages, and personal experiences.
Exactly. It's a timeless truth expressed in continually fresh, accessible, and deeply moving ways.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now, wherever you are in your journey? It means that these sources present a deeply consistent, profoundly hopeful narrative. That true comfort in suffering is found not in the impossible expectation of the absence of pain, which, let's be honest, often isn't promised in this life, but rather in the unwavering, promised presence and the profound, active provision of God through that pain.
It's about how you are equipped to navigate the storm.
Yeah, how you find your anchor, not just passively waiting for it to miraculously pass. I truly challenge you, maybe, to reflect on your own experiences of pain, whether they're past wounds that still ache sometimes or present struggles that feel overwhelming right now.
Yeah.
How might these powerful assurances drawn directly from these ancient texts and beautifully echoed in modern expression apply to your specific moments of weakness, burden, and heartbreak?
And building on that, maybe consider how the very act of acknowledging and expressing pain, as we see so vividly in the raw, honest lament of the Psalms, and even in these contemporary prayer songs from Smith's Solace, how that might actually be the critical first step towards experiencing this promised comfort.
So expressing the pain is key.
Possibly. Does the radical act of coming as you are with all your weariness and brokenness, like in Matthew 11:28, or humbly admitting my flesh and my heart may fail, from Psalm 73:26, does that paradoxically open the door to truly receiving divine assurance?
That's a profound question.
It raises the question of whether vulnerability and honest lament are not just acceptable, but perhaps even prerequisites for truly experiencing this deep transformative solace.
Wow.
Perhaps explore how these themes are expressed in different forms of spiritual or artistic creation in your own life or in the world around you, things that specifically help people navigate suffering.
That's a powerful thought to leave with. A genuine challenge, maybe, to lean into the very places that feel most broken rather than run from them. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into finding assurance in pain. The insights we've unpacked today are drawn directly from the incredible sources you shared with us. We truly hope they offer you a fresh perspective, perhaps a measure of comfort, and maybe a pathway to greater hope. We look forward to diving deep with you again next time.